Real quick.
Is there
On three. 1, 2, 3. Matt, take it. Okay, I got it.
Any questions? You don't want to talk about it?
I'm gonna catch you next time.
Could you give us a principle that we can use to differentiate racist actions from those that aren't? I thought at a certain point that you had agreed that the principle was that if you base your evaluation on race instead of their actions, that's racism. But then at other points in this conversation, it appears that you do not agree with that principle. And that's what's confusing me.
No, I think it's very simple. And the bottom line for me is that we should move toward a colorblind society. But we're not there yet.
Okay, so
I would like to see us as a society and as a nation move to that place where we'll forget about race and color and see people, as human beings, and judge everybody, not by the color of their skin, but by the character and the makeup of their personality.
So you do think that you should judge people based on the color of their skin, or you think that you should not?
Well, you shouldn't judge any human being, no person should be judged by the color of their skin.
Okay, so the racist is mistaken because he's using the race of the person to evaluate his skills or his character instead of focusing on the person's actions, the way they are, the merits. Is that correct?
I would
you agree with that?
I would stipulate that.
Okay, the reason for that is because race doesn't determine a person's skills or character, right?
Race should not.
It doesn't, or does it?
Race shouldn't have anything to do with a person's character or person's skill.
People, there's good white basketball players and there's bad white basketball players, right? And the same with blacks, right? So your skills are not determined by your
race, your color, your sex.
And your character isn't determined by your race either, right? So the racist, when he is using race as a factor to evaluate, he's making a mistake, right? Because he's not focusing on the actions of the person, on the merits. And that is essentially the mistake that the racist is making. Would you agree?
I would agree.
So basically, would you agree that you should judge people based on their individual actions, not on the actions of the members of their race?
As a rule, people should be judged by their individual action. But when you have a whole class, when you have a society, a governmental body or a private body sanction certain racial action, that must be taken into consideration. And that's why we have class action suits. That's why you have equal treatment under the law, the 14th Amendment.
So you think that you should not always judge a person based on their individual actions?
No, I think as a rule, people should be judged by their individual action.
But sometimes not?
But, you know,
That's the question.
No. Look at our recent past, where a whole state, a whole county, an entire company, an entire government has sanctioned certain racial action. And then you have to look as a body, as a class.
But is it fair to evaluate a particular individual based on somebody else's actions, or should you judge that person, evaluate him based on his own actions?
When you have a state, a company, or an entire nation sanction certain racial action, customs or tradition, all of those factors must be taken into consideration.
Well, but which of the... I'm trying to find out exactly what you think on racism, what your point of view is, and it seems like you're giving me...
Well, you're probably going to suggest that it's double talk, but it's not.
Yeah, because you're saying... I'm asking you, what I'm trying to figure out, should you judge people based on their individual actions? And then sometimes it appears that you're saying yes, but then you say sometimes you shouldn't. Is that what you're saying?
Because of the history.
Okay, so sometimes it's okay, it's fair to judge an individual not based on his actions, but based on somebody else's actions.
Yes. When you have a
You think that that's fair?
It is fair. When you have a state, an entire state, whether it's with the state of Alabama or the state of Mississippi, or whether it's the United States government, sanction and racial action where you lock an entire people out because of the color of their skin, where you engage in a conspiracy, and said that no one can come into this restaurant because of their color.
But do you think that
no
that's
one
wrong?
in a particular county can vote because of their color, and in a county that is 80% black, a political subdivision, and are not a single registered voter, then you must judge the entire county. You must judge the population of that county, because in a real sense, no one is innocent.
But do you
we
think
all
that,
are guilty of participating in racist act.
do you think it's wrong to judge the person based on his race or not?
Well, as a rule, I think it would be wrong to judge a person based on race.
But sometimes it's okay. Is that what you're saying? But
No.
isn't that exactly, excuse me, but isn't that the position of the Ku Klux Klan? They think that sometimes, it's usually they don't judge people based on their
No,
race.
I'm not going to
And then
suggest that.
but sometimes they want to use race as a basis for judging people, which I would say is racism. But you're saying that it's not always racism?
Well, I'm not going to engage in that type of dialogue, because I don't put my philosophy and my belief and those of us who came through the civil rights movement in the same boat with the philosophy and the ideas of the Klan.
That's what I'm trying to clear up, so that you're not in this, so you don't end up in the same boat. So wouldn't you then agree that it's always wrong to use race to evaluate another person's skills or character?
No,
instead of focusing on their actions?
Well, I've tried to suggest that you should judge a person by their character, by their individual qualification, by their philosophy, and not by the color of their skin, not by their race.